Good morning, all, and Jai Sadgurudeo. Before we begin this session, I would like to bow down and offer my prayers to the holy feet of Lord Sadgurudeo. Please join me by closing your eyes. सच्चिदानंद स्वरूप हैं मम आराध्य भगवान, बार बार वंदन करूं युक्ति भेद रत ज्ञान, आदि अंत अरु मध्य में शाश्वत जाको से अमृत अंतर्यामी हो। नमो नमो मम देव। Welcome to yet another awaited session of our weekly Sunday Satsang. Myself, Ravi, have joined this virtual Satsang from Texas. In the present era, our daily lives are perpetually consumed by the pursuit of meeting and our physical and mental needs, as well as fulfilling our social obligations. Understanding the hustle and the bustle of this fast-paced routine, the essential needs of our soul often get overshadowed. Therefore, I extend my heartfelt congratulations to each and every one who has joined this satsang to carve out your precious time from your schedule for this virtual satsang, where we aim to nourish the needs of our soul. Our focus today will be on delving into the profound insights of Swarved Wisdom by Dr. Subhash. So let's move to our next session. As we know, like Swarved holds a central place within the philosophy of Vihangam Yoga. The recitation of its verses, known as Dohe, couplets in English, has the profound ability to instill harmony and peace within our soul and mind, guiding us towards righteousness. Today we are joined by Dr. Subhashji. His spiritual journey has brought him close to achieving great heights in spirituality. A beloved disciple of Lord Sadgurudeo, Subhashji has been blazed multiple times by Sadgurudeo. One of remarkable contribution lies in his ability to connect and correlate the teachings of Swarved with various ancient scriptures. This wisdom from different sources enhances our understanding of his spirituality and brings us to the light of universal truth. Now let us turn our attention to Subhashji, who will elaborate the benefits of some of the Swarved couplets and will discuss some of the profound meaning of those dohe. Over to you, Dr. Subhashji.
Thank you, Raviji. And Jai Sadgurudeo to all. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Guruve Namah. So once again, thank you all for joining today's session. And the couplet for today is from first mandal, second chapter, first couplet. Jina aaya jina chalo, manavo tyag sanyo, Kramsah sukshma ho raho agragamana gatiyo. The way I read it and understand it from the commentary, here Swamiji has laid emphasis on the soul and how this soul, in what form this soul associates with the Prakriti and dissociates with the Prakriti. So we know that Supreme Brahma is one, but souls are many. And both are conscious entities and both have eternal existence. The difference between the Supreme Being and a soul is of ability, in the sense that the consciousness of the Supreme Being is infinite, unlimited, whereas that of the soul is limited. And second is that the Supreme Being does not change its form. It stays in the same form regardless of the time. Whereas the soul changes its form. If you look at the glossary part on this slide, you see clearly that soul does not have a beginning or an end. So what changes? It's its form. Soul was not, it was not born or it does not die. It was there, a conscious entity with eternal existence. So we need to focus or understand something which we have talked multiple times, the different forms of the soul. What are the different 6 stages of soul? So we all know Hans Deha, that is super conscious state, Kaivalya Deha, conscious state, Mahakarande, prime causal state, Karande, causal state, Suksh Deha, subtle body, and Sthul Deha, gross body. So the way the couplet reads, Jheen aaye, jheena chale, means out of these forms of the soul, we came to this Prakriti in the Sukshma form, in the subtle body. And even at the time of the departure from this Prakriti, we were in the subtle body or the Sukshma body or very fine form. So we need to understand what happens. What happens that the soul changes different forms? And we believe that soul, being a conscious entity with eternal existence, was residing in the zone of the nectarine bliss with the Supreme Being. So that was the Hansde, the super conscious state. The soul is in association with the Paramatma. And now in that association, soul's consciousness increases infinitely. And at the same time, it acquires or it believes that it has acquired all the qualities of the Supreme Being. Now, with this feeling that I am the Supreme Being, I have acquired all the qualities of the Supreme Being. Now, in this state, the soul deludes itself. And that deluded state, that I'm identical, I'm same as Parbrahma, Supreme Being, that state is known as Kaivalya Deha. To make it more easier to understand, the example that is always used to understand this is of the fire and a piece of iron. So when a piece of iron is in the fire, it's difficult to differentiate between the two. The iron also becomes red and it starts glowing. But it is red and glowing till the time it is in the fire. So what happens is the devotion to the Almighty with full knowledge of everything. So this state, the superconscious state, has come from the fact that the soul has devoted itself to the Almighty with the full knowledge of everything. Now, but with this glow, soul forgets with the ego. We have talked about 4 inner organs: man, buddhi, chit, ahankar, mind, intellect, chitta or memory, and ahankar, ego. So with this deluded state of believing that I am identical to the Supreme Being, it loses its devotion, its complete surrender. And just as a piece of iron, when taken out of fire, loses the acquired qualities of the fire, similarly, as soon as the ego, that I am Brahma, crops up in the soul, it no longer cares to remain in the zone of nectarine bliss and tends to move towards the zone of creation. So first, the ego. Second, now I am Brahma, so it does not care to be in that nectarine bliss. And then it moves downwards towards the zone of creation. That state is known as prime causal state or Maha Karan De. Karan in Hindi, in English, would become causal, causality or the cause. Since the soul no longer cares to remain in the zone of nectarine bliss and tends to move towards the zone of creation, it is still in the conscious state. Other way people have explained it, just like if you're holding a flower in your hand, even after you drop the flower, the fragrance of the flower in your hand will stay. That is the Mahakaran state. So here the flower is the physical association. So you have not have any physical association right now. All that you see in this state is the desire. Desire is not the right thing to say here. It is the ignorance and the ego that led to the next stage, that is Mahakaran. Now, where does it comes from? It comes from the worldly impressions on the soul, which are deeply rooted, which were annihilated when the soul was in the Kaivalya stage and moving upward. But those impressions and the ego, the soul goes further down into Karan De, or the causal state. That is known as the zone of creation. Now, what is the difference between the Karan and the Mahakaran stage? Here, the 3 gunas of Prakriti, Sat, Raj, Tam, the gunas of the Prakriti, comes into play. Before, in the Mahakaran, it had impressions of Sanchit Karma, and here is the zone of creation, the Mool Prakriti, and its 3 components, Sat, Raj, Tam, or if we talk about it in the terms of atoms and molecules, the reference is that of electron, proton, and neutron. So what happens? in the causal body. The causal body has the subtle and gross body in the seed form. And its function of the causal body is to just act as a storehouse. So you see, the soul was in the nectarine bliss. It developed ego, deluded itself to the cavalry stage. There, because of its impressions, Sanchit, impressions of the past life, which became dominant, it comes to Mahakaran. Then in association with Sattva, Raj and Tam, it goes to Karan. And then becomes Sukshmadeh. Sukshmadeh is made of 19 elements. 5 sense organs, 5 organs of action, 5 pranas, and 4 internal organs. Mind, intellect, memory, ego. Going back to the sloka, the couplet, Jheen aaye, jheena chale. So now you are still not in the, this is the way you enter into this Prakriti. Until this, you are beyond Prakriti. But the moment the soul acquires or changes its form to the Sukshmadeh or subtle body form, then it enters the Prakriti in the form of the mother's womb. So when the tendency becomes firm and firmer, then from causal state, the soul has the wish to enjoy the worldly pleasures. Then it adopted the subtle body, and now it enters the mother's womb through male and female union and comes out in the manifested world in the gross body. And this is the gross body in which it comes out. Now, what happens to this? So as we know, this gross body and 19 elements, this body goes through the changes of birth, childhood, adolescence, youth, senility, and death. Now, what happens during death? Death is the separation of the subtle body from the gross body. Jhina chale. So, jhina means when you leave the gross body and adopt your subtle form, that is where your journey back to the first form begins. So what happens in the death? The subtle body separates from the gross body. But then what had happened in the gross body? In the gross body, the soul had experienced different worldly pleasures. And obviously those are short-lived, followed by misery. It has gone through the cycle of love, hate, love towards the objects that are liked, hate towards those which are not liked. And because of its desires and multiplication of the desires through the experiences, what happens next? That Atma in this subtle body takes another birth in one of the million species, depending on the desires and tendencies of the previous life imprinted on its chitta. And the process is repeated ad infinitum, and the soul finds itself shackled in the endless chain of birth and death. So you saw from where it came down and why it is still engrossed in Prakriti, going through birth and death. Soul has forgotten its real nature. and it identifies with the body, and with the body, it identifies with the worldly pleasures. Only when it finds the miseries of this bondage unbearable and craves to find a way, then another conscious entity, that is Sadguru, begins to guide the path of salvation. So we saw the first line, Jheen aaye, jeena chale, chalo, man wa tyag sanyog. So most important is again man, and how to get rid of it. Kramsa sukshma ho raho. So now you are on this earth in the gross body, and you are enjoying those enjoyments which in realities would lead to misery or the suffering. And depending on our past karma, regardless of where we are born, what is our genetic make, and what environment we have grown up into, we have to reap the fruits of the action performed in our previous lives. And the more we are engrossed in the Prakriti, the less the soul, the less is the realization of the soul of its true nature and identity, which is separate from mind and body. So when we have to kramsa sukshma ho raha, when we talk about kramsa sukshma, we are talking about separation of the soul from mind and body. So with the gunas of the Prakriti, law of karma, desires, the soul has come to the gross form, suffering. But the moment a burning desire arises within the soul, it liberates itself from the worldly bondage and submits to the humility of the Sadguru. So when you submit to the Sadguru, the reverse journey of the soul towards its real abode begins. And that is Agra Gaman Gati Hoye. Agra, forward, Gaman, to walk, to direct, Gati, movement, more speed, Yog. So that is the Yog where you have complete surrender and you submit yourself fully to the Sadguru. That is where gradually, Kramsa, gradually, Sukshma ho raho. So gradually in this process, your soul separates from the body and the mind under the guidance of the Sadguru. There's a gradual successive detachment of the soul from Prakriti. And gradually it comes back to its conscious form. It then devotes itself to the Supreme Being and achieves supreme bliss. So Kramsa Sukshma ho raho. Now here we are talking about when you associate, surrender, submit yourself to Sadguru. As we know, the first stage of Vihangam Yoga itself. What is expected? What do we do? In the first stage, the soul detaches its consciousness from the external world and associates itself with the subtle body. So in the first stage itself, you see your entire 5 sense organs, 5 karma organs, which are making you do things, and the way you are connected with this environment. Just by the first stage of yogic practice, you become little sukshma, A little bit. How? Because your consciousness, the conscious energy has stopped flowing to the external world. So kramsa sukshma ho raho. So gradually, when you stop dissociating, no, when you stop dissipating your energy to the external world, then gradually you move forward, where in the next stage, your mind, intellect, and pranas are left behind. And then subsequently, and in doing so, actually, you get rid of the subtle body. Subsequently, you get rid of the three gunas of Prakriti, and then the causal body is separated from your soul. Or the other way to say it is that now the soul is entering into, is leaving the causal form to enter into Mahakaran, or prime causal form. So once it is separated from the gunas of the Prakriti, the soul acquires unlimited strength and brilliance. And for attainment of superconscious state, where the soul had ultimate nectarine bliss, the soul must be free not only from the physical association, but also from the latent impressions of this association. As you remember, in the Mahakarana stage, I talked about the fragrance, but not the flower. So those latent impressions from the past lives, even those needs to be dissociated or got rid of. So when the worldly impressions on the soul are rooted out and annihilated, then that is the separation of Mahakaran state. Now, this Mahakaran state has been separated. Yogi can now sit firmly in an unbroken samadhi and obtain bliss of Supreme Being. And in the samadhi, the soul acquires the qualities of the Brahma. The soul is the piece of iron, and Parbrahma, the fire. In samadhi, the soul, the iron, which is burning. And now, in this burn, the soul feels like it is the fire, the Parbrahma. And then once again, it develops the feeling of I am the Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi. And that is the Kaivalya stage of the soul. So to reach to the Kaivalya stage, that craving for nectarine bliss, understanding of the miseries of the bondage of this physical world, it has come to that stage, Kaivalya. But then it develops ego, and that ego of Aham Brahmasmi, I am the Brahma, in the soul is due to ignorance and the main cause of its downfall. And here comes, only through the practice of Vihangam Yoga, when Sadguru's blessings, Sadguru's association, you learn that my relationship with Supreme Being is that of a master and servant, and we are no way alike. Sadguru prevents you from the downfall in that state. Your ignorance goes away, and with your utmost humility, devotion, commitment, and acknowledging that Supreme Being is the master and me as a soul am the servant, the soul then goes back to its purest state of Hans Deha. And in this state of Samadhi, the yogi dives in the infinite ocean of supreme bliss while living in this body, which is the ultimate aim of yoga. So the more important part here is, as you will look at the glossary, the Gati Sambandh. In which, and it has also been explained here, the definition of this term has been approximated. This is an inexpressible subject of meditative experience in which one attains the Supreme Being by immersing themselves into Him. So that immersion of yourself into Him and not letting yourself in the falsehood that you are Brahma, that is an important part. And that only happens, this journey, the reverse journey, where you traverse ahead, is only through Sadguru and Sadguru's blessings. That is all I have to say. Thank you, and back to you, host.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Subhasji. Beautifully explained with the different ways of explanation and different presentations, explaining all the the progressive experience of the yoga, how the soul is transitions from different bodies, and explaining how the man is attached with the worldly desires and how we can get rid of it and what happens. So any questions in the audience?
Yes, Gurudev. Thank you very much. That was a beautiful summary. We had a pretty good download about the the falling of the soul from Hams Day to the Sthul Sharir. What kind of if let's say that fall is happening first time, then how does the body get determined? The first body is that once, let's say, it is falling from the Hams to Kaivalya, and then down to Mahakaran, Karan, Sukshma, and then what kind of form does that soul gets in the first time? If you can enlighten a little bit on that, thank you.
Jai Sadgurudeo Niranjan ji. I will try to use logic and give some explanation, and it may not be absolutely correct. So in Mahakaran, the latent impression of your previous life and the life and the birth and the life and whatever pleasures you have enjoyed, whatever you have not enjoyed, whatever you are still longing for, those impressions are there. So as you descend from Kaivalya to Mahakaran, those impressions are your impressions. That is the way you have lived previous so many lives. When you go further down to Karan stage, your association with Prakriti, the three gunas, are also based on your prior life and birth experience. And as I understand what birth you will take or what form you will come out in this earth will be dependent on your past life karmas, your expectations, desired, unfulfilled, fulfilled, what you wanted, what you did not want, and that would determine the kind of birth one will have. That is my understanding. Thank you, and back to you.
But when it is falling first time, then it did not have any past karma. Because the reason I'm asking is because I was listening to one of the readers or learned person of Srimad Bhagavatam, and he was expounding that the first fall happens and the person becomes he falls into the Brahmalok, because there's a description of 14 planetary systems in our universe of the four-headed Brahma. So that's where he falls, and then if further falling happens, then it will basically trickle down to 8.4 million forms based on that. So that's why I was kind of curious if there was any insight on that for the first time, because there's no past karma. It was only the soul only fell because of their Aham Brahmasmi feeling, and then there was a desire to enjoy the world of Maya, like a child looking at a new toy. Maybe I'll draw some pleasure there, and then it basically gets entrapped into the world of Maya. But because it is coming first time from the Amarlok, looks like there's some privilege for that spirit who lands up into the highest planetary system of our universe, which is the Brahmalok, which is the seventh higher planet above the Bhuloka. And that's how the entrapment begins. So if you have some, if any of you have heard about that, it would be good to kind of understand that. Thank you.
So Niranjanji, you brought it, corrected me precisely that if we are saying that the soul falling for the first time, and if we are saying that the fall is because of the ego followed by desires, so then yes, there is no answer. I do not have an answer that how can someone have a desire if you have not known it, and how will that be determined? I have nothing to even express, even in terms of logic. Thank you.
Jai Sadgurudeo, Shriran here. I would like to just put my thoughts forward, because this question did come up actually a few times in our local satsang. And I think the way we try to understand is, based on the karmas and what happens. I think we should not talk about first time, but what happens when a soul falls down from the Hansa state, right? Because we know that that fall can happen, and when that fall happens, you do not have any previous karmas, because in that state all your previous karmas were burnt in the Yogagni. So that that is one aspect. Second aspect is the body gets determined based on your the sanchit karmas. So if there are no sanchit karma, you as a soul cannot go into any of the bhoga yonis, because for a bhoga yoni you should have previous karmas for which you have to bear the fruit. So if there are any no sanchit karmas to pick from, after having a lot of discussion and brainstorming, we kind of concluded that you should get a human form, because that is where you can perform new karmas. And if if there are no previous sanchit karmas left to go in a bhoga yoni, a human form is the only form that can that you can take. That is how we concluded. I'm not sure if that's the right conclusion, but this was one of the questions that came up in our local satsang a couple of times. Jai Sadgurudeo.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, I think that also makes a lot of sense, because I haven't really read the specific verse in Srimad Bhagavatam that they were referring to, but yes, it is kind of interesting to understand, what our scriptures also say. And one other curiosity was, as the soul descends, is it possible that at what level can it come down and still be able to move back up? So let's say if it is falling down from Kaivalya, comes to Kaivalya, and it's in the Brahma Jyoti, which is the Mahakaran Sharif. And that's more like a dormant state in that zone, actually, based on, because it's a Brahma Jyoti where the spirit is more like a dormant, maybe on the verge of falling further down. But is there something that can happen with that spirit to move back up if it decides that? Because there's always a free will. The spirit always has the ichha, pratna, gyan, which is equal to actually free will. So if the spirit has that free will, where it has the knowledge, some knowledge is there, there's a desire is there, and it can actually make the effort based on that. So does it have the ability to move back up that, oh, maybe I don't need to go and play with that toy. Maybe I should go back there, because there's no anand here. In the Brahma Jyoti, in the Mahakaran Sharir, there's no bliss. And immediately it will recognize that, oh, maybe I lost something big and I should head back up. Is that a possibility? Is there a description about that? Thank you.
So,
Jai Sadgurudeo, Niranjan ji, this is Vijay. If the host.
Yes,
go ahead, Vijay.
Yeah. Swamiji has written a small booklet of Guru Vandana. So in our satsang, we don't actually sing the entire Guru Vandana, but in prayer session, we are singing that entire Guru Vandana. So in Guru Vandana, Swamiji has said, यदि होत मुझ में ज्ञान प्रभु, आधार क्यों मुख फेरते, प्रकृति में त्रैताप दुख से होत बल चित फेरते. So Swamiji wants to say there that the reason for fall from the union with Almighty, or our basis, basically when we keep our concentration, our chetana associated with Almighty, so the reason why we dissociate from there is only the alpa gyan within the soul. So while it is associated with Almighty, the moment it reverses its concentration from Almighty to the self, it just loses the base of Almighty, because now its concentration is on the self, and that is where the ajnanata, the seed of ajnanata also germinates. Because the moment it looks at itself, it just forgets about why it is experiencing the self so blissful at this point. It immediately creates the impression that, oh, so this is all what I'm experiencing is all me. And once this Brahm, this Ajnanata, this has taken its germinated within itself, then it is under the clutch of the Granthi of Ajnanata. So the Granthi means the bondage of Ajnanata has already gripped in, right in the immortal zone itself. And once the Granthi of Ajnanata has gripped in, only Sadguru can break it. Because now you yourself has already considered that as a reality. So for the ignorant soul, for the little knowledgeable soul at that point, that becomes the frame of the truth. It considers whatever I'm experiencing, this is the truth. So there is no way that it will break this illusion by itself at that point of time. So eternal Sadguru is one who basically enlightened the soul, even during those fall, enlighten the soul and saves the soul. But as you said, soul, just like here, Sadgurudeo is doing Amritvani, but is are all the attendees receiving that Amritvani with the same spirit? They are not. It totally depends on how deeply the bondages of ignorance has rooted into the soul. So same thing happens there too. Once the agyanata, the seed of agyanata has germinated within the soul, then the fall is ensured. It just doesn't. It is now the moment it loses the base of Almighty, it gets its attention towards the Prakriti, and then it developed the very deep urge to experience the Prakriti. It wants to get the experience of Prakriti right when it loses the base of Almighty. So the seed of Agyanata, once it has germinated, it is bound to fall. And when it falls, that's when the reverse process has to happen by the process of Vihangam Yoga. And when the Srishti is created, when the creation begins, it is always like that the creation is not the first time that is happening, but it is also in the cycle. And the creation is happening, dissolution is happening, creation is happening, pralaya is happening. This is in cycle. And within this cycle, it is not that all the souls that are taking the body here are all falling from the zone of immortality. It is not like that. There are souls who are already hanging from the previous creation, which actually got into pralaya. And before it got into pralaya, they did not liberate. So they are hanging for the next creation to happen. And they are hanging with all the karmas associated that they have performed in the previous creation. So in this creation, they will accordingly get the body. But the one who is falling from the zone of immortality, they will fall into the human body, because that's the karma yoni. But those who are hanging, they will get the body based on what karma they have performed in the previous creation. And that's why Swamiji also says in the prayer, Yadi hot mujhme gyan prabhu adhar kyun mukh ferate. And further also, in another lines, Swamiji also explains the same thing again, that only the eternal master who then appears and enlighten the soul, those who totally get eager to get freedom from all this suffering, then and after hearing, let's say, the saints, and when they get little knowledge about, oh, there is some entity called God, and I have fallen from there, so I now have a deep urge to go there. But then that soul doesn't have direct contact with the human form of Sadguru. For those souls, the eternal master appears in the human form and enlighten the soul and liberate the soul. So eternal master is constantly working, and the relation that the eternal master develops with the soul, either through the human form of Sadguru, for example, those who connect with the current master of Vihangam Yoga. Basically, connecting with current master of Vihangam Yoga is just a mode, a channel through which actually we are connecting to the energy of eternal master only. Ultimately, Sadguru entity is just one. And right now, we are fortunate that Sadguru is available in the human form. But those who are still not in touch with Vihangam Yoga, it does not mean that they are deprived of Sadguru energy. If they develop the deep urge for liberating, for getting the darshan of Almighty, for them, Eternal Master appears, of course, based on how pure their intent is. Is that just the kshanik, the momentary desire to get experience of Almighty, or that is like there is one term called that even if you put the head of that person in the water and he is going out of his breath, yet if you ask, what do you want right at this point, and he says God, not prana, if he has that deep urge for Almighty, then for that kind of soul the Eternal Master appears and enlightened with the Brahma Vidya. And once that relationship is established, the relationship with the soul continues. The Sadgurus and soul relationship continues till the Mukti Dham, till it reaches to the Mukti Dham. Even in the Mukti Dham, the Sadguru's energy is running. So he will keep you, he will keep doing his duty of breaking your illusion. But, the soul is having the free will, as you said. So some souls listen, some doesn't, and they fall again. That's how it happens. But then the refall is after you can say when infinite numbers of creations and pralay has happened on the earth. So that it's like beyond time. So once you go there, of course you stay there for infinite number of years, but then it just totally depends when you get illusioned about yourself, and then you fall. Yes.
Thank you very much, Vijayaji. I think that was beautifully explained, and I think one aspect which makes it really, I would say, fortunate for Vihangam Yogi is that we have the Eternal Master working in a physical form, which makes it so much, I would say, much easier than the example that you gave about a formless avyakt rupa bhakti of the Guruji. So if you could just comment on that. Is that right understanding?
Yeah, absolutely, Niranjanji, you got it right. We are very fortunate that we have the Vyakt form, and we have recognized that this human form is the form where eternal Sadguru energy is flowing. This very recognition is also a very fortunate event, and it happens only after thousands and 10,000s of births of good sanskara, good karma, that we, it's called when the punya ka ghada is filled, then the Almighty blesses the soul with the Sadguru. So Sadguru is the greatest boon given by the Almighty to the soul who deserve. And we are very fortunate that if we are still, and that's the whole reason why we see that in Vihangam Yoga, the philosophy of Vihangam Yoga is so advanced. It looks non-worldly in nature. Yesterday, Mr. Sanat Kumar, who is the son of Rajkumar Gupta ji, he was very rightly pointing it out that in Vihangam Yoga we talk about things which doesn't look real. And of course it is like that because people are so worldly in nature that they want to hear only about things that matter to their current life. The moment we go into the advanced topics that Vihangam Yoga has the capability to touch upon, the good thing or the bad thing about Vihangam Yoga is that Vihangam Yoga is a very widest stream of knowledge. It doesn't stay just in making our mind capable to deal with our daily problems and worldly life. But then it just cannot stop there because Vihangam Yoga has 5 stages of meditation. So if people keep asking questions, then Vihangam Yoga has answers and answers and answers, and it transcends then the worldly reality. And people think that now what Vihangam Yoga has started talking, what is going tangent to my head? Because it is like that. Vihangam Yoga has the reach to even speak and make you experience those experiences which is beyond our senses, and that's when it start feeling like non-real. But yes, the greatness is that Vihangam Yoga has that entire dimension, and it has entire dimension only because the eternal master is literally flowing through the human form of Sadguru. So when the human form of Sadguru is available to us, only those who deserve to recognize Sadguru and accept Sadguru, only they will come to Vihangam Yoga. Those who have just momentary inclination towards spirituality, or what they think that, oh, I am a spiritual person, in the scale of real being spiritual, if that scale is of 10, entire world today, when they say that I am spiritual, their definition of spiritual fall under just scale of 1 or scale of 2. Whereas when we start really talking about what being spiritual truly mean, even those who claim that I'm spiritual, they will say that, oh, it doesn't seem real to me, because for them the liberation of the soul and the conscious zone and the sarashab, these all do not matter to them. And that's where we know that being spiritual and being a true devotee, that the definition that we get in Vihangam Yoga and the definition that people know have a huge gap today. And only those who are a true deserving soul, those who are blessed with Almighty, all because they have done certain good deed in all previous lives, only their heart accept the philosophy of Vihangam Yoga. This is a reality. So we are fortunate. Yeah. Go ahead.
That is very much true, actually, Vijayji. Either it's a past lives, or somebody is he has done honest, genuine research using his intellect, and that requires the knowledge of Hindi also, unfortunately, because then they are looking at the wide, even at a vernacular languages, and then arriving to the with their vivek and sense and intellect, that the true shraddha has to develop. That's why, like you were saying earlier, the gyan and bhakti also goes hand in hand. In some cases, it may also be really a lot of shraddha developing from the past life. So yes, absolutely. Thank you for that beautiful explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijayji, and thank you, Niranjanji, asking for the questions. So, do anyone of us has having any more questions?
Jai Sadgurudeo. I have one question. It's just a curiosity. As we are talking about, how the soul falls from Hansadeva all the way to Stuldeva, and the journey begins back towards Hansadeva. Is there any kind of, information that how did the first time souls get created? And why?
Yeah, I would like Vijayji to take this question. And
I think Dr. Subhasji is there. So
yeah, Dr. Subhasji.
yeah, please, yeah.
Thank you, host. Thank you, Vijayji. So The question is how the soul is formed first time. And the reality is that it was never formed. It always existed. That is the reason why we keep saying extents, that they were always present there from the time we have known of existence. Just like the Almighty, who has always been present, there is no beginning, no end. In the same way, soul is the conscious entity which also had no beginning, no end. It was not like it was formed at that time and then this and this happened. It was always there. It changes its form, but the soul as an entity is again has eternal existence and consciousness. When we say eternal, there is no end, there is no beginning. That is my understanding. Back to you, Vijayji.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the definition of the consciousness. Consciousness is, and the reason people have this question, despite we hear that Atma Ajar Amar Hai, we hear it, right? That the Atma is Ajar Amar. Amar means one that never dies, never cease to exist. And Ajar means one that never even get old. So despite we hear it, the reason people come up with this question, and Mukeshji is just representing those, just out of curiosity, that why people say about it, because we have a different philosophy where people think that the only thing that exists is Almighty, there is no soul. It's just the illusion. The Aham Brahmasmi, which was explained in Vedas and also beautifully narrated in Swarved, that has been misquoted and misunderstood by people. Aham Brahmasmi is where people started thinking that, oh, we are just one tiny part of the whole of Almighty. And this is the root of the seed of ignorance that people have. And from that frame of reference, people think that, oh, the moment we, create a balloon containing the small air out of the entire air, that momentary enclosure is a soul. And the moment you burst out of it, then the soul vanishes to exist, because then it integrates into the whole. This is the philosophy that is running also in the spiritual world by people who have read Vedas and have misunderstood it. And Sadguru Sadafal Devji Maharaj has very emphatically dissected that logic and said that soul has an eternal existence. There are infinite number of souls, and there is one Almighty. Almighty is undividable. You cannot divide it. You cannot create boundary within Almighty, and you cannot fragment Almighty. Almighty cannot be fragmented. So you and me are not two separate fragments of one Almighty. Rather, we two are two independent souls who have their own existence. It is just that our nature right now are different, despite in our purest form, we would have had the same pure nature. But today we are different only because we have gathered different impressions after assuming the human body. After assuming the human body, different karma, different thoughts, all that has shaped our indriyas, our mind, our intellect, our chitta differently. Soul is still the same, But right now, we are not only the soul. We are functioning, we are thinking, we are reflecting, we are acting based on what we have gathered in our chitta, what all experiences we have gathered in our chitta. Those experiences raise as a vritti in our mind. We take that as a reference before we conclude on any experience. If you look at one long thing, let's say a newly born child, even if the snake will come to the newly born child, the newly born child who have not seen the snake before, one child may just, will not react anything, but surprisingly some of the child will behave differently and will show the fear looking at it. So how the newly born child also is understanding that this snake could be dangerous. Similarly, every newly born child, they know few things. They don't even need to be taught. For example, how to cry, how to um, how to drink milk from the mother. Few things child are already aware of it. All that is because we carry our experiences from the previous life, and some of those experiences are active and some are in dormant state. That is how the chitta organizes our experiences. It organizes our experiences in various states. Some of the experience will be active, some will be dormant, some will be suppressed. So if let's say there are certain feelings that is impacting the way you behave right now, if you want to get rid of those kind of impressions, then you need to suppress that by doing the majority of your karma in opposite direction. And that's how, in fact, in spiritual word, we manage our thoughts, we manage our mind. Swamiji and Sant Pravar has been telling about it, that if we want to grow in spirituality, and if the worldly thoughts are imposing you to do something which is not good for your spiritual life, then at that very moment you start thinking opposite about it, and opposite to it meaning more about spiritual uh, philosophy and the reality, the truth. And more you ponder upon those, then those other thoughts will get suppressed. So what is active right now decides our current behavior. So you and us are behaving differently because we have gathered different set of experiences all throughout the cycle of various lives. Not because the soul is different, it is just because the layers of our soul is different. So you and us, are you and me and everybody, have their independent identity. Everybody is a soul, and today we are behaving differently, all because of different karma that we have performed after assuming this body. Once we are purified, once we attain our purest Sat-Chit form of the soul, then our nature becomes one. Once we unite with Almighty, we all become Sachidanand. And in that, the uniformity, when all souls become Sachidanand, in that uniformity, when the experience is same, that is where the illusion of Aham Brahmasmi comes. Because everything is now integrated, just like the iron, when you put in the fire, then even the iron acquiring the heat of the fire and melting into the fire, you will lose the impression of the iron there in the fire. Only when you extinguish the fire, then you'll find the molten layer of iron underneath. That means the existence of the iron was there. It was just because it acquired the property of the fire, it integrated so well in the fire that almost you stop recognizing the existence of the iron into the fire. Same thing happened with the soul. When the soul integrates with Almighty, then all that remains in our experience is the Almighty alone. And that's where Aham Brahmasmi, the word, has come. It doesn't mean that the soul ceased to exist. Soul is there. It's just that the experience is as if I am the Brahm. Yeah. Jai Sri.
Thank you, Vijayji. I hope it answers, Mukeshji, it answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Vijayji and Dr. Subhasji. Aptly expressed, cleared my doubts. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Mukeshji, from where have you joined?
I'm from Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, wonderful. How did you come to know about this session?
Yeah, one of my friends introduced me to this YouTube videos that you have explained, and from very first I got very, impressed with your explanation and your passion. So I kind of completed the whole series and became more involved. I did have this kind of inkling from a long time. The questions that are coming is because of those, that why we are here, what is all this story of us. But really, kudos to this whole satsang. Although I've been involved in many satsangs, but never been like a fully more into that from the outside. But there's something was burning, so it feels like I'm getting into the right place. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. By the way, we are all going to India in December, and
I am too.
100th anniversary of Vihangam Yoga. So in December, if you are in India, I will request you to please plan to visit Sarnath, Varanasi.
Gigi, exactly. This is what do we say? The coincidence or some calling that I had a plan to visit India at the same time, and at the same time I started getting more into this, Vihangam Yoga, and I'm coming to India definitely with my family, and I have a stay in Varanasi as well. So I plan to visit the mandir, and
Wonderful.
maybe the dates could be a little bit
off.
I don't know, maybe.
But so 17th and 18th are anniversary, 100th anniversary, where Narendra Modi ji will come either one of those days, maybe 18th now. I think it's happening. I think 18th. Most likely Modi ji may come, but it will be a huge program, and you will, it's like Kumbh. Once anybody goes to Kumbh Mela, then people get so deep impression about that it will make you spiritual. Just attending Kumbh Mela will make you spiritual. And so is Vihangam Yoga. Once you get the impression of, oh, so I'm not alone. There are people and they still appreciate the spiritual journey. That impression will, intensify your journey into Vihangam Yoga. One last thing, Mukesh, I'm sorry, I'm taking time, folks here. One last thing, that are you initiated into Vihangam Yoga meditation?
Ji, I've been initiated by Raj Gupta ji. And,
okay. Good to know. Okay.
Just happened to start my first Brahma Muhurat today.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, good to know.
अंदर से जल्दी है कुछ, लेकिन I know it takes time.
जी. Okay. Thank you so much.
Start your spiritual knowledge seeking. How many years ago? Just curious.
No, spiritual तो अंदर से ही था. As I said, I've been burning, like in a family there is always something like that. We follow Guru Nanak ji, and there is a Brahma Gyan explained, and whole family kind of listens to that, but not everybody kind of follows exactly in that manner. So it's like when I watched these videos, it kind of gave the whole story clearly. So that's kind of brought me back into this more closely. Otherwise, in reading Gita every day, reciting, you'll read a little piece of it, you understand, but then when you don't connect everything properly, you're not getting the whole picture. So we may be solving day-to-day life issue, not the overall journey of the soul.
Very nicely said. Yep. Thank you.
One question I had, I think I asked last time, Raj Gupta ji, that is there English translation of Swarved coming out? I'm not that good in Hindi, so would like
Mukesh
to.
ji, I think once you go to Varanasi, you will get that
Uh-huh.
book there. It is going to be inaugurated during the event.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So now, before going to the next session, I would like to inform everyone that Vihangam Yoga NAIVY has been conducting meditation on the Brahmurat between 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. It is to encourage most of us to take the benefits of the Brahmurat. This is the peak time where your concentration is high and you will be gaining a lot in your meditation. So there is a WhatsApp group known as Brahmurat Warrior, where each participants, they practice the Brahmurat meditation on their own, and they just drop a message as done. So we have a warrior of the week, people who have been doing consistently in the Brahmurat, and we have inductees of the week. Means they're trying, but they're not very consistent, but they're trying like once in a week or twice in a week. So Bhagwati Patel ji, Prachi Sirsagar ji, Radha ji, Sri Rang ji, Surya Alam Raju ji, Tilinder ji, Yogesh Sirsagar ji, thank you so much. And we have inductees of the week is Amit Talekar ji, Lal Mani ji, Monica ji, Niranjan Kumar ji from California, Rashmi ji, Shivani Prasad ji, Sudhanshu Kumar ji, and Minita ji. Thank you so much. So Mukesh ji, if you also want to like join to this group so that you gain a momentum, let me know. I can add you to that group and you can, do the Brahmurat meditation and drop a message there like that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Please do.
Sure. So now we have reached to the last phase of today's workshop. In this phase, we chant the short version of Vandana, Aarti and Santi Path. Vandana is the prayer through which we seek blessing of Sadgurudeo. We request a well-being of health, wealth, and seek his blessing for his spiritual knowledge. I would now request Dave Ji to sing the last 4 lines of Vandana. Over to you, Dave Ji.
Vandana. Prabhukalpa Santa Samaja Uttama Sarva Dharma Chaya Hai Jimi Nadya Sri Tu Singh Ki Hai Vishwapathamaya Kaya Hai Prabhu Satya Santa Samaja Tira Aparaksha Kijiye Jana Sadafala Jana Bhakti Priti Dina Dina Kijiye. Thank you.
Thank you. Aarti is another prayer offered to Sadgurudeo. where we acknowledge the power of Almighty and pray that all disciples experience eternal joy, love, and freedom from worries under His holy guidance. I request everybody to stand up on their feet for Aarti, and again request Devji to sing the last few lines of Aarti.
Aarti. Jai Gurudeva Hare, Jai Sadgurudeva Hare, Shisha Janaki Sanche, Kashana Me Dura Kare, Joshana Me Awe, Satapata Pawe, Mohimite Jivaka, Sukhashante Wae Pawe, Dukahade Mite Jagaka, Guru Murati Gati Kandrama, Sevaka Nayana Chakur, Poleka Poleka Nirakata Rahe, Guru Murati Kior, Shweta Shweta Maya Shweta He, Shweta Shweta Maya Shweta, Tina Pada Niti Bara, Shweta Mahamana Shweta, Ashta Chakra Sabasunya Para, Daradhara Kipar, Tahansa Dafa Garakia, Holy Parada Sansar. Thank you.
Thank you, Devji. Now, everyone, sit down for the final prayer of Santipat. In Santipat, we chant for peace for everyone who exists in this universe. May Sadgurudeo bless the entire cosmos with peace, love, and prosperity. I would again request Devji to recite the last few lines of Santipat for us. Over to you, Devji.
Shantipat. He Prabhu Shanti Sarupa Ho, Shanti Shanti Maya Shanti, Shanti Shanti Jana Shanti Ho, Purna Shanti Maya Shanti. He Prabhu Shanti Pradan Kara, Duraho Sarva Shanti, Deva Sadafala Shanti Maya, Shanti Shanti Sukha Shanti. Jai Sadgurudeo Bhagavan Ki Jai.
I would like to thank you all for joining this satsang and briefly discussing about Swarved Dohe and the sequence of how the soul, um, travels through the different bodies and its journey, and understand the worldly affairs. So I would, encourage everyone to learn what we have discussed today and try to implement that in our daily life. So NAIVY has been conducting this Sunday virtual satsang and initiation workshop for over the years in North America and USA. Any queries related to this can be sent to an email like info@VihangamYoga.org. And I would request you all to again join this virtual satsang next Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the same Zoom meeting. Till then, wish you all a happy Sunday and have a wonderful week. Jai Sadgurudeo to all.